Okay, so my presentation is going to be over the uses of microbes in alcohol, food, and medicine. So alcohol production in microbes, the uses of microbes in food production, and the microbial roles in medicine. So one of the billion-dollar industries that utilizes microbes for the creation of their products is the alcohol industry. People have used alcohol for thousands of years and continue to do so today. This wouldn't be possible without microorganisms. A lot of different microbes are involved in the process of fermentation, but Saccharomyces plays a key role. And I'll be focusing on beer and wine for brevity. In beer production, a starch source is broken down into something called wort. That's a sugary liquid that becomes the alcohol portion of the beer once it's fermented. And Saccharomyces cerevisiae is used in the production of ales, and Saccharomyces uverum is used to produce lagers. And one's a top fermenter, the cerevisiae is, and uverum's a bottom fermenter, and where that's fermented in relation to the wort is what gives the alcohol, like the ales and the lagers, their different flavors and characteristics. Okay, so winemaking and microbes. Wine is made from the fermentation of sugars in fruits. Grapes are the fruit that usually come to mind when we think of wine. Through the fermentation process, those sugars are turned into ethanol. And Saccharomyces cerevisiae is the main yeast used for wine production. And the health of the grapevine is also influenced by yeasts, fungi, and bacteria in the soil. So the microbes are not only key to the production of wine, but they also have an effect on the quality of the wine because of the microbes found in the soil in the vineyards that contribute to the health of the plant and the flavor of the fruit, which obviously affects the final product. So in addition to the sugars being metabolized by the yeast and becoming alcohol as the byproduct, more microbes are in play here because the quality of the wine, because the quality of the fruit depends on microbes in the soil keeping the plant healthy. So an industry that kind of goes hand in hand with the alcohol industry is the food industry, and microbes can be used a lot of different ways in the food industry. They can be used to preserve, produce, and enhance foods. Okay, so this one was one that I was a little bit surprised about, but microbes are used in the production of chocolate. So producing chocolate requires the natural fermentation of the cocoa bean, and a succession of yeasts, lactobacillus, then acetobacters are responsible for the fermentation process and enhance the flavor in the chocolate. So microorganisms are a big part of the reason that chocolate tastes the way it does. So people who love chocolate owe a debt of gratitude to microbes for their role in the tastes produced by the fermentation of the cocoa beans. Another way that microbes are used in the food industry is food coloring. Food coloring is a food additive, and it can be made from microbes. It can be made from bacteria, fungi, and algae. Penicillium and Meniscus are examples of bacteria that can be used as food dyes. And the ability to derive pigment from natural sources is important because of the health risks associated with synthetic dyes. So basically, a lot of dyes have been known to have carcinogens in them, which are cancer-causing agents. And so being able to look to microbes for food coloring could be a great way to break away from those toxic chemicals in synthetic dyes. Mycotoxin removal is another way that we can use microorganisms. So if you look at the table on the right, the things in the big boxes, those are mycotoxins, and off to the right of that are the fungi that produce mycotoxins. So the examples that I've given are Aspergillus flavus and Aspergillus parasiticus. they're fungi that produce mycotoxins. So mycotoxins are toxic and they can cause cancer, so it's important that we avoid eating them. Um, and we can use microbes such as Lactobacillus plantarum, Lactobacillus acidophilus, and Bacillus subtilis to remove mycotoxins from foods. It's a safe way to do it. It's a relatively new way to detoxify foods, but because these substances are so harmful, it's important that we find a safe way to remove them so that we're not consuming them. Medicinal uses of microbes. So microbes are a huge part of the medical industry. Between vaccines, antibiotics, and other medical treatments dependent on microbes, scientific study of microbes for the use in the medical field may be one of the most important fields of study. Microbes and insulin production. Insulin is the life-saving medicine used to treat diabetes. And Escherichia coli and Saccharomyces cerevisiae are used in the process of mass production of insulin, as these bacteria are used to host cloned DNA of the life-saving hormone. So the ability to grow insulin using bacteria in a controlled lab setting keeps the already astronomically priced medicine from skyrocketing even further. So this method is a faster way to grow insulin for the treatment of diabetes. It's much faster to grow the insulin using bacteria as a growth medium, and so it makes for a better large-scale production. As big of a problem as diabetes is becoming, it's important to be able to use microbes in this way so that insulin can be more easily produced on a large scale to be distributed to the public for medicinal use. Okay, so vaccines and microbes. So vaccines are effective because we're introducing a similar species into the system of a deadly pathogen. So it might be something that is less harmful, but the body figures out how to fight off the harmful pathogen nonetheless. So we're essentially tricking the body into thinking that it's experienced a certain disease by introducing it to an inactivated form of the pathogen. So our B and T lymphocytes are activated and they come to fight off the infection. So we've got these antigens being introduced into our system, and our body produces antibodies, and then our B memory cells, or our memory B cells, they're like, oh yeah, I remember how to fight this off because I've already done it before, even if it's not necessarily the same version of the pathogen. Okay, antibiotics. They are chemicals that naturally occur in soil. So penicillin, for example, is derived from Penicillium notatum, which is found in soil. Antibiotics can kill bacteria, or they can prevent the growth of bacteria to keep it from spreading. And antibiotic resistance is possible, so continued research is paramount. So basically, Alexander Fleming discovered antibiotics when he left a project for a while and returned to find that a culture of Staphylococcus had been infiltrated by Penicillium notatum, and the growth of the Staphylococcus had been inhibited. So that was the beginning of antibiotics. Basically, his disorganization and his forgetfulness is something that we can thank for one of the best discoveries known to man. It was discovered by complete accident, but thanks to him, we don't have to worry. If we get a respiratory infection, they can give us something for that. If we step on something and get an infection in our foot, we can take an antibiotic for that. Like, antibiotics have so many great uses, and we have Alexander Fleming's forgetfulness and microbes to thank for that. So the uses of microbes are pretty much infinite, really, but I hope you learned a little something about a few of the ways that microbes are used that affect a lot of us in our everyday lives, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.